Yo, I'm not gonna lie. I think I got a fever. Before we have this review of chapter 157 of Jujutsu Kaisen, please do me a favor and leave your own thoughts on the chapter in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you hit the little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Now, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I got Pencil here, and here we are to review chapter 157 of Jujutsu Kaisen, known as Cogs. And we open up this chapter pretty darn strong, I'm not gonna lie, because we get to see the end of the fight between Kiraira. I'll admit, I have no idea how to say their name. I just don't. That's the thing. I've tried it multiple times. I've typed it into Google. Okay, to be fair, I haven't typed it into Google and listened to what Google's pronunciation of it is. But regardless, I will figure that out whenever the anime drops in like 15 years. But regardless of that, we do get to see that they were beaten by that young boy Megami. But of course, they ask the question of, yo, there ain't no way you playing that thing out though. Like, there's literally absolutely no way you can figure out that how my technique works after like interacting with for a whole 5 seconds. And Megumi's like, actually I kind of could. It was pretty obvious because he basically explains to them that, like, I noticed once my curse energy spiked higher than the divine dog was drawn to me rather than me being drawn to it. So that means your technique works based on whoever has the higher curse energy, and if they're marked with the same thing, they'll be drawn to each other. But the curse, like, essentially their technique is actually really, really good only on like a indirect defensive standard, at least in my mind, because unless your opponent is like able to be pulled towards you and you can attack them while they're being pulled, like you don't have any manipulation towards yourself, it seems like a technique that doesn't inherently protect the user, isn't inherently like it's weird. It's not offensively good towards the user in my mind, because you can't really do anything if you accidentally mark your opponent with the wrong star, and or your opponent like sandwiches you between a dog and you, I guess. Like, it seems very specific, and I get why it can be used well, because as long as your opponent doesn't know about it, then they're perfectly fine, because they're never going to be able to approach you. But still, overall, really good technique, and I'm glad we got to see it. I'm glad we got to see it used and honestly countered in this way. That was very, very cool. Then we get to see that despite all of their like fighting over these last 2 chapters, Megami is like, yo, please, we are pressed for time. I'm gonna need some help. And Ki, I'm just gonna call them Ki. I have no idea how to say their name still. So Ki is like, fine, whatever. But then we get to see that Itadori, like, my man got gunshotted out that building. Like, we've seen Itadori go flying a lot. It happens. But there's literally like a bang, like an explosion went off, and Itadori flies halfway across the rooftop. Man makes a whole leap, bro. And then we get to see that it's time. Hikari walks out. And honestly, I like this Hikari design way more than I like him with the coat. Though I think him with the coat is like, inherently it has more drip. It has a bit more sauce. The way he's like, he has this very much street brawler feel to him, and I feel like that fits his character a whole lot better. Like the swag, the drip, it wasn't right for Hikari. So seeing him in this like straight up tank top, throwing hands, literally slugging Itadori, it's amazing. And it's also cool to see how he punches. Like, I feel like I've seen this punch before, but like he literally smacks Itadori with like the front, like not even the front, like, because typically you hit someone with your knuckles when you're punching, because that's like more force and it's in a sharper area. Like it'll hurt you, but you could typically punch like that. And I think that's how even Itadori punches. But the way Hikari like swings and slugs at Itadori is with like the front knuckle, like the broad side of his fist instead of any of the pointed sides of his fist, and it still does amazing damage. And I guess the reason he does this is because, as it's revealed, his cursed energy is like a bit sharper and rougher than others. So since he enhances himself with his own cursed energy, it means that his attacks, regardless of how blunt the initial hit is on him physically, the jagged nature of it is still going to hurt regardless. And then we get to see that despite like Hikari feeding my boy Itadori a whole knuckle sandwich, Itadori just pops right back up. And to be fair, this does make sense because Itadori is a demon. I mean, he is like super physically reinforced automatically, as we found out, and also he's just been in like way worse fights than this. Like, man fought a literal human manipulating demon without worry, so I feel like a little slugfest won't hurt him too much. But then we get to see that despite all this, Itadori has currently decided that not only is he not going to like defend himself and dodge, but he's not going to fight back. He's essentially just going to keep letting Hikari swing on him until Hikari's like, all right, fine, I guess I'll help you out, like that. And I sort of get the strat. Like, you want to not anger him anymore by like swinging back and slugging at him, but that's an interesting thing to note. Hikari has like no damage on him from when Itadori headbutted him. I just noticed that, like, he has no damage from when Itadori straight slammed their heads together. That's pretty cool. But regardless of that, it's interesting to see how Itadori has come to this resolve, because I guess he realizes that the more and more he fights back, the less and less likely it is that Hikari is going to be like, all right, fine, you just beat me up, I guess I'll work with you. And obviously they want Hikari to be in top shape, considering this is the culling game and you need as many strong people as you can. I suppose Itadori, that's the only thing I don't get. Maybe he can go back to Shoko or something, but he would need to heal up from this fight, because my man is bleeding from the nose. He is damaged. I know Sukuna is chilling in there like half asleep, and he is not helping out Itadori. But the thing we also get to see is that Hikari, when he manifests his cursed energy, it seems very top heavy. Like, typically whenever we see someone manifest their cursed energy around themselves, it's like all throughout their body. Like, I remember the most recent example I can think of off the top of the domer that I've reread recently was the Yuta versus Itadori fight, where the cursed energy coated Yuta's entire body. It even extended out to his katana. And I know Yuta has like immeasurable cursed energy, but at the same time, it's interesting to see how Hikari sort of manifests all of it towards the top. And I wonder if that like amps him anymore, like if he's able to isolate all of his cursed energy into certain parts of his body, and thusly he's able to hit harder than the regular person could, because all of it's concentrated into one area rather than like an even spread for defense and offense. But notably, alongside that, it seems like Hikari is perfectly fine with listening to Itadori as long as Itadori can keep speaking while he's getting his face knocked in. And honestly, I didn't necessarily like Hikari at first. I thought he was a little bit weird, I'm not gonna lie, and I didn't necessarily like his fever gimmick at first. But now that I see more and more of Hikari, especially him fighting now and how like playful he is, like legitimately when Ki yells at him like, yo, wait, you need to listen to these kids, and he's like, I literally just said I'll listen, don't worry, I'm still gonna just beat the snot out of him though. And he seems to have like big main character energy, you know what I'm saying? Like, he seems like your traditional shonen main character. Like, he has this weird unique power. His cursed energy is different from everybody else. He has his own little gimmick in the fever thing. He seems very, very powerful, like so much so that Yuta even hypes him up a lot, even though Monkey like downplays him a bit immediately after Yuta says like, oh, you know, Hikari at a certain point, he's stronger than me, and Monkey was instantly like, boy, if you don't stop cap. But regardless of that, it's cool to see that Hikari sort of like, he brings his presence to him now that I didn't get at first when we first were introduced to him, and I really, really like that. But then we get to see he's like testing Itadori's resolve. He's asking him questions like, yo, I have never met you before. You have never met me before. For what reason would you come to me for help, especially if you have no idea about me? And Itadori responds in the simplest way possible, my upperclassman said you were swole. And instantly, as like a instant response, and this is interesting, like, I'm not sure if Itadori stepped forward or if Hikari just straight blitzed. Well, to be fair, Itadori isn't dodging or trying to fight back right now. But like, Hikari was standing a good distance away from Itadori, like at least 2 whole body lengths away from him. But the moment Itadori answers, because my upperclassman said you were strong, Hikari had cleared the distance and uppercutted him again. And then we learn about like his more sharp cursed energy. And this is something that's noted that apparently even, let me see. The way that Itadori describes it is like, what's with this guy's strikes? Regardless of the force behind each blow, they're painful. It's like him being slugged at by baseball bat razors. And that's noted in like how his cursed energy manifests itself the panel before. No, not the panel. The page before. And we get to see that Hikari is like still focused on this idea of fever. Like, he wants a good reason for someone to come along and ask him for help. Because essentially, he's right. When he mentions in the sorcerer world, asking somebody for help is like, yo, you trying to come die with me? Because it's essentially like, look at Shibuya. Like, every single sorcerer that came there to help was essentially on death's door, and some just got lucky and a lot didn't. But then we get to see that the young boy Hikari is like, yo, you are bringing me nothing. Like, there's nothing that raises my pitch. There's nothing that brings me to a fever about you, bro. Like, you're telling me you came here for my help. You want me to risk my life with you just because someone else told you to? That feels nothing free. There's no independence there. You're weak. You're fodder. You're pointless. And the thing is, we get to see Itadori just fully acknowledge that he doesn't have a fever. He's not doing anything independently because he wants to. He views himself as a cog, a part of a machine, and he just wants to help sorcerers continue to exercise curses until the day he dies. And the interesting thing I like about this in particular is that it shows how much Mahito, despite being like pretty sure dead, like he was used in Uzumaki. That's why the young boy, I was gonna say Noritoshi Kamo, Kenjaku, he was the one who like extracted the technique from the young boy Mahito, and now Mahito's gone. But Mahito's like trauma that he placed on Itadori, like the idea that Itadori is nothing more than a cog and that he has no free will of his own, and he's like essentially this tool, and they're equals in the sense that they live for nothing but one thing, and that's the death of a certain type of creature. It's cool to see that that's lasted with Itadori, and Itadori has come to this, and how honestly, despite what Hakari says and how boring that seems, like being a cog, it shows that Itadori has a fever of his own. It's just not the one that Hakari wants. Like, Hakari is a person who views fever and like this high energy, this freedom, as someone who's willing to do anything to go against the system, do whatever they want, regardless of what the system desires. However, due to the way Itadori phrases it, him being a cog, Hakari doesn't view that as a sense of freedom. He doesn't think this is like Itadori's own free will. He's just doing it because someone else told him to, and yada, yada, yada. He doesn't even consider that at first. And we get to see that Hakari himself once again notes that his cursed energy is rougher than other people. And the thing is, he mentions Gojo here. And like, guess Gojo could just see it, but that's an interesting thing to note. Like, how does one determine the texture of cursed energy? Like, is that a new level of rating it? Like, if you touch like Itadori's cursed energy, is it like sharp? I don't know. Is it like bubbly, like it showed in the anime, where like sort of rises up and like fumes off? Is it like fiery? Is it smooth? Is it buttery? Like, I don't know. It's just weird to see it described as rougher and not like sharp or anything like that. But it's interesting. And then we get to see that Hakari is like giving up on Itadori, because like he looks like he's darn near dead, and he tells Panda and Sea Urchin Head, which is, I feel like, has Mega been called that before? I feel like his head has been compared to a sea urchin, but he's never been called Sea Urchin Head directly. But then we get to see, as soon as Akari says like, yo, run away and never return, Itadori is right behind him. But of course, Itadori still isn't attacking him. And the thing is, we get to see how Itadori like recontextualizes his nature as a cog to Akari. He's like, okay, I'm a cog, and cogs have a role. My role is to exercise curses, and if your help is needed to do that, I will take you down. I will not take you down. I will follow you everywhere, and I will get you to help me. And we get to see that Itadori asks Hakari a very important question, and he asks him, what is your role? And honestly, I'm getting too many Kingdom Hearts flashbacks. I did watch Unchained Key. Not Unchained Key. I did watch back cover, but I don't know. I'm getting role flashbacks. But regardless of that, we get to see that now that Itadori has recontextualized it, even just slightly, even just a little bit, now that Hakari has looked into Itadori's eyes, he senses a fever. Or no, what I love even more is how Hakari doesn't even notice it, because Hakari is ready to just continue on the beatdown. Like, he's like, fine, whatever, even if you, I'm gonna murder you anyway. But then we get to see that Key comes out the clutch and is like, yo, Hakari, bro, aren't you getting a little heated? Like, and then Hakari, like, I love his reaction here. Like, he's like, oh, darn, I can't lie to my fever. He just gives up. And I love how like the entire tone shifts. Like, it's such an abrupt tone shift that even Panda, someone who already previously knew Hakari, and Megumi are both like, I'm sorry, what? We get to see something that Key reveals about Hakari, is that regardless of how much he hated society and hated how the higher ups would treat him, he always had the highest fever and he always felt his best when he was helping out people at the high school. And that does, like, see, this feels like Hakari could have his own series, bro. Just in the same way that Yuta could have had his own series, Hakari could have had his own series, bro. I would have loved to see Hakari's backstory, him training with Gojo. Like, this chapter alone has made me like Hakari like 10 times more. I thought it was an interesting concept as soon as Yuta introduced him, but now seeing him here in this way, in this fashion, being this like I said, like a pseudo main character kind of thing, where he has his own dreams, motivations, stuff he wants to do, his own ideology. Like, he brings a very like weighty presence to him now that admittedly I don't feel like he had before, and I think that's great. It's amazing how good Akutame Sensei is at like writing characters with their own presences quickly. we've known and interacted with Akari for like maybe 10 chapters at most at this point, and he's not even been the focal point of a lot of those chapters. But still, just with this chapter alone, he's managed to establish Akari so well in such an interesting way, and I can't wait to see how he interacts. I want to see what his curse technique is, because I don't think it's just like the sharper curse energy, because he did manage to like throw doors at Itadori somehow a few chapters ago. So I'm interested to see what else he can do, and I'm interested to see him interact with like Maki, Yuta, like all these different people who he once interacted with back at the school, now that the school is essentially in disarray. This was a very interesting chapter, and I'm super glad with what it did for a character who I initially wasn't too interested in based on what he had shown so far. Great work, Akutami Sensei. And honestly, that's about it I have to say for the chapter, because not much is happening. I can't really say what I think is going to happen next chapter. I think it's just going to be an explanatory chapter where they explain everything to Hikari, and they may like start formulating a battle plan, or may report back to Jujutsu High now with him there. Because now I think about it, Yuta has already entered one of the colonies, so I'm wondering what's going to happen with the gang now. But other than that, super solid chapter. I'd say, honestly, like I haven't drawn much of Akutami Sensei's work. Like, admittedly, I've done like some minor work. Well, no, I've done some minor practice with his art style. I still do find the art style very, very interesting, but on its own, I haven't done much with it. And drawing Hikari for this video was very, very interesting, because it shows like a lot of the detail in Akutami's artwork comes from the much more rough nature of it. But honestly, that's another time for another video, so I will definitely go more in depth on that later. So we'll talk about Akutami's art style later on. But overall, great chapter. I love the character interactions here. I love the reveal and like full explanation of Key's technique. I love everything in this chapter. Honestly, for the first review of a really good series, I'm gonna slap it with an easy, light work, a 10 out of 10. Schmacking. Super excited for next chapter. Can't wait to see it. But that's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off.